The Prodigal Pastor. Ethan grew up in church. Sunday mornings meant polished shoes, worn hymnals, and the familiar sound of his mother singing softly beside him. His father served as a deacon, steady and faithful, the kind of man who arrived early and stayed late. Ethan knew the scriptures before he knew many things about the world. He listened to stories of David's courage, Joseph's endurance, and Peter's restoration. He believed them. At least, he used to. As Ethan grew older, questions crept in quietly. Why did prayers sometimes go unanswered? Why did good people suffer? Why did faith feel so certain for others, but complicated for him? Outwardly, he was still present, still attending, still serving, still smiling. But inwardly, something had begun to unravel. By the time Ethan left for college, the distance was no longer just physical, it was spiritual. At first, his departure from faith was subtle. He stopped praying regularly. Then he stopped reading his Bible. Then church became something he used to do. He told himself he was simply finding his own way. But the truth was quieter. He was running, not from God, though it felt that way, but from disappointment, confusion, and expectations he wasn't sure he could carry. Years passed. Ethan built a life that looked successful from the outside. Yet there was a restlessness he could not explain, a low, persistent ache that followed him into quiet moments. Late at night, memories surfaced. The sound of worship, his mother praying, scriptures he thought he had forgotten, especially one. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6. The words lingered like an echo. The turning point did not come with a dramatic crisis. It came with exhaustion. One evening, Ethan sat alone in his apartment. For the first time in years, he whispered, "God, I don't even know how to talk to you anymore, but if you're still there, I'm tired." Silence followed, but it was gentle, patient, familiar, not condemnation, presence. And something inside him broke open. God had never left. Restoration began with small steps. He opened a Bible again. He returned to church and sat in the back, unsure if anyone would recognize him. Someone did. An older man named Samuel smiled and said, "Welcome home." No questions, no lectures, just grace. Healing was not linear. Some days were filled with peace, others with regret. But God does not measure time the way we do. Samuel later asked him, "Have you considered that your story might be part of your calling?" Ethan whispered, "I walked away. That disqualifies me." Samuel replied gently, "God doesn't waste restoration. He uses it." The call came quietly. Ethan found himself drawn to people carrying the same questions he once carried. One night while praying, a thought surfaced. You know the way back. Help others find it. Years later, Ethan stood at the front of a small church. Not perfect, not polished, but surrendered. He often said, "God is not surprised by detours. He writes redemption into them." People listened because he had been restored. One morning, he preached about the prodigal son, but he spoke from a different perspective. "The story isn't only about a son who returned," he said. "It's about a father who never stopped watching the road." His parents sat quietly in the congregation. They had watched that road too, with hope. Ethan became known not as a perfect pastor, but a safe one. A pastor who believed restoration was real. A pastor who welcomed questions. A pastor who understood faith is sometimes rebuilt. The prodigal had become the shepherd, because God still calls people who once walked away. God still restores purpose. God still writes ministry out of broken seasons. The road back had become the road forward. And that's the end of our story for today, friends.